Subscribe now.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Welcome to the Bigfoot Influencers podcast. We are just delighted to have everyone here, and thank you for tuning in. Tim Halloran and I'm probably really the co-host. She runs the show, but you want to say hi to everybody?
No. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our show. Super excited to have you guys here and super excited about our guest. It's going to be fun getting to know her and talk to her and see what she's all about. We wanted to talk before we bring Amy in, though. We did want to talk a little bit about Bigfoot in the news. So I'll let Tim go ahead and talk about some of the headlines.
Sure. Recently, there's been a couple of videos floating around over the last couple weeks. One was in Tennessee, and that's where someone caught a potential, or I don't know about potential, but a suspected Bigfoot in the woods on his iPhone or Android. I'm not sure what it was. I think it was debunked, but if you guys check out the Squatch DTV, Steve Coles and Chris Bennett, they discussed it on their most recent episode that just aired. So dig into it. I think they debunked it, but who knows? I'll let that for everyone to judge. And then there's another one that happened in California that I haven't seen too much more about it, but someone caught something and they think it could potentially be one too. So you guys check it out. That's on TikTok. But if you type in, just look up Bigfoot video California and in the news, and it within the last couple weeks, and you guys can check it out and let us know what you think. So
cool. Another headline is we're going to be at Crypticon. So that's in 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks from, is it 2 weeks from this weekend? No, it's actually like 10 days from now. So we're going to be at Crypticon. We're super excited. It's in Lexington, Kentucky. Never been to Kentucky before, so I'm kind of excited about going. Are we flying or are we driving?
We're flying. Yeah, we decided to fly. Yeah.
Because the drive was going to be long. It was going to be like what, like 9.5, 10 hours. So we're like,
And if we didn't have work schedule, it would be
we
fun.
Could have done it.
We could break it up, or
I mean, we could have technically done it with the work schedule. We'd have to be driving in the middle of the night. We're not doing that. So we're gonna fly, and we're super excited because this will be our first Crypticon, and so we'll have a booth set up there. So you'll see us, the podcast influencers, the Bigfoot influencers, and Tim will have his book there, and we'll be able to sell it and answer any questions that you might have about the podcast and about the book. And then, you can just go ahead and just say hi to us. It would be awesome.
Yeah, we just want to meet you, hear your stories, hear how you got involved. If you're so nice to buy a book, we'll be thrilled and happy. And if you do, there will be some other the influencers that are in the book at the event. So you can grab their autograph while you're there. They autograph their chapter. I think Tom Shea will be there, Cliff Barrickman, Matt Pruitt, and I'm sure there'll be some other people floating around that may not be speaking, and we can probably track them down as well. So we look forward to that.
Yeah, and we'd also like to get to know you if you have an encounter, an eyewitness experience, because right now we are interviewing a lot of the influencers in the Bigfoot world, but we'd also we're trying to get together like an episode where we have some eyewitness stories. So if you have anything, please, come visit us at the booth at Crypticon.
Yep. Look forward to that. And so tonight, super excited. Tonight's guest is Miss Amy Bue. Amy, for those who don't know Amy, if you're listening to the podcast, you probably do know Amy, but maybe you haven't. So she was recently featured in the Wall Street Journal article we talked about a couple weeks ago, which is big time because major media outlets don't cover Bigfoot, so they just don't. So when something like that happens, it's just pretty cool. It's just a cool thing. Amy's going to talk about that a little bit later. So I mean, she's done. I mean, I have her tell you a little bit about what her professional career. Not only is she a school teacher, she does some other things. She's been involved with the Olympic project with Shane Corson and Chris Spencer and Derek Randalls and David Ellis, and there's more. There's a whole group of them up there. So she's talked to probably hundreds or more witnesses, and she's also the curator of Project Zoobook, which you guys are going to learn about that tonight too. So we're just really thrilled to have her. And are you ready?
I'm super excited. Yeah.
So I hope Amy doesn't mind the intro, but we're going to pull her in and we'll get her opinion on how I did on that intro.
Hey, Amy.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you? I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you, Amy. I've heard so many cool things about you. So, like, obviously, Tim is like completely enthralled and wrapped up in the world of Bigfoot, but that's because of me. I'm the one who got him into it. But now he's like everything Bigfoot, and he is always like Amy Bue, Amy Bue, Amy Bue, Amy. So, like, I'm super excited to actually get to meet you and talk to you in person.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I really am. So I feel just as excited as you guys do.
Cool.
And
so
go
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Amy was just I'll tell the quick funny story about the book. So Amy was kind enough to be part of the book. And then she was even more kind to and we'll get into why, because her background, and then she's just an awesome person anyway, but she offered to review a couple of my chapters for me. Yeah.
You get like all the teacher, like little red circles.
Well, I used to be a proofreader and an editor before I became a teacher.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I told you, I was like, I don't have to do this. You can do whatever you want. I can't help myself. I thought you did a great job. You did a great job.
Thank you. But it was awesome. I laughed when I got back, and it definitely was red ink. So, and I said, but it's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So, I mean, it was such a huge help. So, because the book, if I haven't talked about this as much, the book was a team effort. I mean, it's my name's just on the bottom of the book, but it's really, the book was about everyone in the book. And it was, what the coolest thing is about the book, I think it's just a huge collaboration. I had so much help and support from everybody, and they offered, it was just fun because I got input from, there's 30 influencers in the book, but there's more than 30 because I have some other people who did things in that weren't, maybe not had a full chapter, but they had other parts of it, and it was just fun. So thank you, Amy, for being part of the book.
Thank you for including me. It was quite an honor and unexpected. So I really was like, what? Okay. I'm serious. I'm serious. It's funny. But no, I really appreciated you reaching out to me. So feeling is mutual.
Cool.
Well, again, we're super excited to have you, Amy. And, like I always start off with, because we want to get to know our guests on a personal level. So always want to ask you like a few questions. So as we were speaking before, you are a school teacher. So can you tell us what made you decide to become a school teacher?
Well, I had always kind of thought that's what I wanted to do when I was younger, except when I was really young, I wanted to be an arachnologist or a coroner like Quincy, but I never went down that path.
Oh, Quincy was so cool. He was the coolest dude ever. Yeah.
So I was like, I want to do that. And I always like spiders and bugs and things like that, but I did not go that path. But when I went to college right out of high school, I was going to be an English teacher, and that's what I was going to do. And then the college that I went to for the first 2 years, they like threw you bam right into the classroom, and the coordinating teacher I was with was like, okay, go teach. Like she was just like, teach these kids. And I got so intimidated that I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. And it's unfortunate because I've been a coordinating or a cooperating teacher for other student teachers now. And I'm like, you don't do that to somebody. But I always say there's no mistakes. I just went down a different path, and I was like, okay, I don't want to be a teacher because I just felt intimidated. But instead I went off and I became an editor and a technical writer. So I did that for several years and a proofreader. And then when my daughter came along, I was like, I always kind of wanted to be a teacher. I think I'm going to try this again. And I saw this sign about this university near where I lived in Cleveland saying like, you can come, you can do classes at night, you can do them on the weekend, we can get you through it faster, because I already had my bachelor's degree. So I just had to get the education classes, and I was like, I'm going to do it. So I went back to school when I was older and became a teacher. So I've been a teacher for like 14 years now.
Cool.
Wow.
So basically you were getting your, like here in Delaware, we have to get a certification.
Yes.
Is that what you were doing? Okay,
yes.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And so I had a baby and I went to classes at night and it was crazy, but I did it. So I just love it. I love.
How old is your daughter?
She is 25.
And oh my gosh.
I know. Wow.
We just celebrated. So Tim and I have 4 boys, and we just celebrated our 3rd oldest's 25th birthday this weekend.
Oh, so yeah. Birthday.
It's his birthday. Yeah, it was his birthday. And Tim's mom's birthday was the day after. So we kind of did it all in one.
Yay. All kinds of birthdays.
Back to back. It was awesome.
So what grade level do you teach right now?
I teach 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th language arts.
So what is that? What does language arts involve? Like what exactly?
It is English and reading. It's like basically I teach English. Like at my old school, we had one class for English and we had another class for reading, but language arts, you kind of squash it together and do it together. So
they're learning grammar, they're learning writing.
Grammar, writing, spelling, vocabulary, reading, all that.
That's so awesome.
So last year
all the things I need help with.
She was the perfect person. I used to teach English as a second language when I lived in Italy. Nice. So that's a lot different. I mean, not that much different, but it's different. But it's different. I mean, the English language is really cool for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved it. I love kids. I love trying to inspire them to be better and not necessarily better, but to follow their dreams and things like that. So I really enjoy it. It's tough. It's a hard job, but I enjoy it.
Well, I think I recently saw some artwork from some of your students, some Bigfoot artwork. I think that's pretty cool. So
they are great.
I didn't see that.
They're really into Bigfoot, some of them. It's funny. But especially we're reading a novel in 7th grade right now about survival and stuff. And they know, like, I don't look like that's what I like to do, but that's what I like to do. And so they're all intrigued by that. I work with inner city kids, and a lot of them haven't been out in the forest and things like that. So they're all, fascinated by what it is that I do. And they like,
yeah, Bigfoot. I mean, I definitely think like the forest is a scary place for inner city kids, where I think like I grew up in the countryside. I went to college in Philadelphia, and I can remember like my friend who grew up down here with me brought her boyfriend home down here, and he was like he's like Philadelphia inner city, completely freaked out by like the woods and the countryside, like, oh my god, I'm gonna die out here. And it's like, dude, you're gonna die in Philadelphia. What are you, crazy? Like, this is like so safe. Like
right.
But yeah, whatever, it's the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
It's the unknown.
Yes. Absolutely, it's unknown.
Mm-hmm. But so Amy, you're also a naturalist, is that correct?
I'm a certified volunteer naturalist, so I don't have the credentials to call myself a naturalist, but I went through a program through Ohio State University where I can help them. So like we learn a lot of different things and do continuing education with that. Do a lot of my own education, I guess, just getting out there and reading things and taking classes. But yeah, no, I don't have the naturalist title, but certified volunteer naturalist is what I am.
Gotcha. But you're still,
Girl, you're a naturalist, honey. Don't worry about that certification. you just got it.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
I know, girl. So can we get into the Bigfoot thing with her? Because okay, girl, because I am so intrigued by you. So can you share how your first possible Bigfoot sighting impacted your interest in the subject?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I always wish that I had a more exciting first experience.
Right.
But to me, it was exciting, but definitely not something that I can say for sure was Bigfoot. But I'll just explain it a little bit. So I was a passenger in a car, and I saw something standing along the shoreline of a reservoir in Ohio, which is what was crazy. Like, well, Bigfoot was crazy enough, but that it was in Ohio was crazy too. At least to me, I did not have Bigfoot on the brain. I really didn't think about Bigfoot. That was not something that I was ever interested in. And
when was this, Amy? Like, how old were you?
2012, so 10 years ago.
Okay, so it wasn't that long ago. Okay.
It wasn't that long ago at all, but I saw this figure along that shoreline, and I could tell that it was alive because it moved. It was very dark, uniform in color, and my perception of it was that it was very tall and especially very wide. I could never, even if I would have known to try to send somebody back in there and do a size comparison at the time, which again wasn't on my radar, you can't get in there because it's the city's water supply and it's guarded under the Department of Homeland Security. Been over that bridge hundreds, if not thousands of times in my life and never even saw a person back there. So I think that's why, I was like, what is that? But
it'd be illegal for someone to be back there unless they're working, right?
Yeah. There could be rangers, or something, or people sneaking in there to fish, which is what everybody around here wants to do. But I don't think it was a person. It was just too large in my perception to be a person. And I know
something made you think that too, because if it was a person, you would have said, oh yeah, why is that person fishing or doing something? But so something in there made you say, wow, that thing is big.
Right.
Or whatever.
It didn't look like a bear at all. And I would say I'm 100% sure it was not a black bear. We get them occasionally, but not often. But it wasn't a bear. So, but it was about 100 yards away, and I was in a moving car. So people will say, like, well, just say it was Bigfoot. And I'm like, I can't, because it was, it was in a moving car. It was 100 yards away. But to answer your question, whatever that was that I saw that day is my jumping off point for getting into this fascinating topic. And I have talked to several people, witnesses from around this area after that, who have seen things right around that same area. So I wasn't the only one. I found out quickly that I wasn't the only one that had seen something there. I'm just not willing to say it was Bigfoot. I want to be sure. When I have that absolute sighting, then I'll know for sure. But it was something that looked like what I would have thought Bigfoot would look like if it was standing there by that body of water.
So before that time, were you interested in Bigfoot or the subject of Bigfoot?
No, not really. I mean, kind of like everybody else that is my age. I watched Unsolved Mysteries, Harry and the Hendersons, that kind of stuff. But no, it was not on my radar. When I was in school, junior high myself, my teacher had us do a report on something we weren't sure if we believed in it or not, which my 7th graders are about to do that same report. Cool. And I did mine on the Loch Ness Monster because he gave out some topics and I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I did find that to be fascinating, just looking into what could it be, because I've always liked Sherlock Holmes, and things like that, and trying to figure out everything else that something could be before you would go with the, odd explanation for something. And I do remember there was one book about the Loch Ness Monster back then in our library, and there was a chapter with Bigfoot in it, but I don't think I even read that chapter. It wasn't on my radar.
So how soon after your sighting, did you just jump right into it and start investigating, or just trying to learn more about, what the subject or Bigfoot, or how'd that come about?
Yeah, kind of yes and no. Right away I called my mom. I'm over at her house right now. And I was like, Mom, I think I just saw Bigfoot. And she was like, okay. But she's always very encouraging, just that kind of a person. The driver was my ex-husband, and he did not see what I saw. And our daughter was in the back seat, and she was lying down on her iPod, so she didn't see what I saw. So it was just me. But I'll tell you, whatever that was had a grip on me to the point where within that week, I started Googling things. I started getting things from the library to read. That's when I found, different websites. That's when I learned there was such a thing as the Bigfoot community, who knew? And so I started reading like everything that I could possibly find on this. And it started out just like, well, this is stupid. There's no such thing as Bigfoot, and it wouldn't be in Ohio. And that quickly went to, oh my gosh, other people are seeing this all over the place and in Ohio.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reports here, like what is going on. So it was kind of like, I wanted to see what was going on. Could there even like be this much of a possibility that something like that exists? Or is everybody lying? Because I knew I wasn't lying. I wasn't even saying what I saw was Bigfoot, but I saw something. Or is it like mass hysteria or what's going on? So I went down that rabbit hole really fast because I was so intrigued by it. But on the flip side of that, I didn't really tell a lot of people about it until about a year later when I started watching Finding Bigfoot. And I was like, there's other people that are seeing this, and so I decided to submit my report to the BFRO, even though I thought, well, they're not going to like my report because it's dumb. I don't have any proof of it. I'm not sure what I saw. But Mark Maisel called me pretty fast after I had submitted that. He's with the BFRO in Ohio, and we became friends. And he kind of introduced me even more to this whole Bigfoot world.
So is that, because so here we go from, Amy who saw Bigfoot, along the road to now we have Amy, like this rock star Bigfoot person. So like, what was your next step from, like you said, you started to become friends with Mark Maisel. So like, what brought you down the path to where you are now?
Well, I started going to hear, once I realized that there were people who were really into this and would speak about it and stuff, I'd go to hear speakers at libraries or conferences, and I would just kind of sit there and listen to their stories. And then what my favorite part about that was hearing from eyewitnesses and kind of sitting there. And I guess I had my judgmental glasses on. I don't know if judgmental is the right way to say it.
What do they call them?
I'm like, are you believable
Skeptical,
or not? Skeptical. And I found that a lot of people were very believable. I'm like, wow, like, are they really seeing these things? So once I had gotten into the BFRO, and I'm no longer in the BFRO, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity that I had when I was in it, getting to take witness reports and starting to kind of travel a little bit further for these reports. And I'll tell you that there's just so many different things that kind of came together. It's funny, like how I came to this place where you're even interested in interviewing me, because, I'm just a normal person. Never in a million years would have thought that I would be talking to anybody about Bigfoot, but I just grew this passion for this subject. So I'm like, if somebody says they've seen one or heard one or whatever, I would be there. So I started traveling quite a bit to go different places. And I would say that a pivotal part of all of that was I had met someone who's a friend of mine now. And she invited me out to Washington because she was going to be at a little expedition with the Olympic Project, which she was in, Barbara Olvera. And I jumped on that. So I'm like, yes, please. Because I knew.
Amy, can you tell everybody what the Olympic Project is?
Yes. So she took me out there, and crazily, I am now a member of it. And I still pinch myself a bit when I can say that, because I admire them so greatly. But in a quick little nutshell, The Olympic Project is a group of researchers out in Washington State. I mean, they're based there in Washington State in the Olympic National Forest or the surroundings. And it's led by Derek Randalls. And what they're but what they're well known for, I guess, in the Bigfoot world is that they have been studying an area where some ground nests were found by a logging company out there in Washington. And it's just absolutely my favorite research that's going on right now. And I know that there are a lot of good researchers, so that's not taking anything away from anyone else. But I respect how Derek and Shane Corson and Chris Spencer and Todd Hale and all of them, we were talking about Shelley Covington, Montana, how they are so methodical about what they do, how they get out there. You know, half the time, if I'm trying to get a hold of Shane, he's out in the woods. He's out in the woods. They spend a lot of time doing this, learning the correct way to take DNA samples, you know, or to collect things that might have DNA in them, I should say. Just the audio work that they're doing. They have been so kind to invite me out there several times, or I've been out Mount Hood National Forest with those guys and learned so much. And I'll tell you that one of the most important things I've learned from them, because when I first started doing this, I kind of started going on expeditions where you're like gung-ho, like out there looking for Bigfoot. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but the Olympic Project style is a bit different, where you're out there in the woods camping, and you're out there fishing for your supper, and you're out there, you know, looking around and seeing what you can see. But it's not, surprisingly, it's not like just uber super focused on Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Like, you are taking everything in. And that's what I do. I have like a micro study area in Pennsylvania in the Alleghenies now, since I'm over on this part of the country most of the time. But just looking at the flora and fauna and what could survive there and what would it eat. And, you know, you're looking and you're hoping you'd find something, but let's face it, like 99.9% of the time you don't find anything. And that's okay. That's okay, because you're still adding to your knowledge base. But the Olympic Project, I've been criticized for singing their praises too strongly before, but I don't care, because I just like how they go about things, and I'm very honored to be a part of them.
So basically, they're more like kind of like studying the environment that a Sasquatch could live in, maybe finding some evidence of a Sasquatch, whether it be a footprint or, like you were saying, DNA, as opposed to actually like getting like a Sasquatch on film or like finding a real one.
That would be awesome. That would be amazing.
But the focus isn't that, right?
Yeah, in an odd way. I mean, obviously we go out there and we're out there and hoping that we find evidence of Bigfoot. I'm not saying that's not true, but it's just, the only word I can think of is like a more holistic approach to it, where you are doing a little bit of everything. And it's like, I don't think any of us expect that when we're out, you know, 5 miles, 10 miles into the middle of the forest, that Bigfoot's going to necessarily come along.
Right.
You know, it's not like you're out there just looking for that. I don't know how else to explain it. I hope I did an okay job.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah.
And I will say, Shane Corson was very kind, and he shared some things for the book. He shared a presentation that kind of gave an overview of some of the findings out there, which was just fascinating. He shared some sketches and some other things about the nests. He just gave me a ton of things.
Those nests are amazing. Like, I could talk about that all night. But yes, Shane, I call him my Bigfoot brother. He and Summer are always so hospitable when I'm out that way, and just good people.
Good. If he's listening, he'll appreciate that.
Hey, Shane. Hey, Summer.
So Tim was also telling me about how you were going to these hunting and fishing expos and had a booth set up, and you were getting all of these eyewitness accounts. And can you tell us about that?
Yes, it's so much fun. It's something that I really enjoy, and I have been for a while there. I was doing an awful lot of library talks and talking at different conferences. And it's not that I don't enjoy that, I do. But can I tell you kind of how that all started a little bit?
Yeah.
So it's a funny story because basically I was speaking at a library and a gentleman was there in the audience, and he came up to me at the end of it and he said, listen, I came here tonight and I'm just going to be honest with you that I came to the wrong room. Because he said that it was I was speaking that night, and it was a big library, and down the hall there was a lady who was speaking about the birds of Costa Rica. So he went into the wrong room, and he said he was kind of in the middle of a row, and then he's like, "Oh, Bigfoot." He's like, "Well, this should at least be funny, you know." So I'll stick around for a little while. So he said that. Well, what I had talked about a lot that night were those nests from the Olympic Project and just the different things that we do to try to collect evidence and different reports and stories and things like that. And he said, and I am just fascinated now, which made me happy because, you know, I know that if people come to see me, it's not like they're necessarily coming to see me. They're coming to hear about Bigfoot because Bigfoot is interesting and Bigfoot is fun. And so he was like, I just can't say enough. Like, I'm really interested in this now. I want to know more about it. Well, it ended up that he was the area's, I don't know what they called him, leader or whatever he would be in the Audubon Society. So that's why he was going to hear the bird talk. And he said, I really want you to come and speak to the Audubon Society. And I was like, I don't see it. You know, I don't know like what they would find interesting.
It makes sense though. It makes sense.
Well, kind of, because he was saying the way that you guys research and how you look for things, he was equating it to a lot of them who were at the time and still are looking for the ivory-billed woodpecker, which is supposed to be extinct. I have a little story about that later too. But people are out there searching for something that other people make fun of them for looking for, that other people are like, why are you wasting your time? That kind of thing. Like really looking at details out there while you're in the woods. And he said, I think it's very similar and I think that they would like it. So he invited me to the Audubon Society, and his, like, it was like a regional thing. So his boss or supervisor or whatever, I don't know if that's the right term either, was there. And he just kind of gave me this like rolling eye look, like Bigfoot, whatever. And I was very nervous for that because it's one thing to talk to an audience of people who are already into Bigfoot. And it was another thing to be talking to people that were like I was before I saw something, you know, and started reading about it. And we're probably just like, why are we even here? It was one of the best talks that I'd ever been a part of, because the audience's sake, they were really interested in asking really wonderful questions. So by the end of that, the guy who was rolling his eyes, he's like, this is really interesting. And so like we should like do this again. Well, from there, I was connected to somebody from the Division of Wildlife in Ohio, and they had me go speak at a function that they had. And I didn't know what to expect because I'm thinking, okay, I'm the Bigfoot lady. Maybe I'm like an amusement thing for the kids, you know, because I do a lot of things for kids, you know, like I'll take Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, youth groups out and we'll go look for Bigfoot and it's fun. So I thought, well, maybe that's, you know, I'm going to have this table and it's going to be like, haha, Bigfoot. So I get there and they had put me at a table right between dragonflies and coyotes. I believe it was coyotes. And I'm like, wait a minute, like they're taking me seriously here. Like I was so taken aback a little bit. I'm like, okay, they're they're not making fun of me. Like they want me to actually sit here and talk a bit about Bigfoot to people. And I got some reports there. Not a lot, but some. And you know, like there's always people that are like laughing about it, which again, I don't care because I get it. I get it. It's Bigfoot. You know, to most people, Bigfoot is like leprechauns or unicorns or whatever. They don't understand that there's more potential evidence than that. Nothing against you who believe in leprechauns and unicorns. But anyway, so that happened. And then I was given a wonderful opportunity by a friend of mine, Dave Groves from Pennsylvania. And he said that a friend of his was looking for somebody to do like a Bigfoot booth at his outdoor show. And Dave couldn't do it. And I'm like, really? Like a hunting fishing show? I'm like, I don't know. Like in my head, again, I'm thinking like they're going to bring rotten tomatoes and throw them at me or something. But I get there. So that was the first one I had done. It was in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, a really big outdoor show. I get there the day before and I'm crawling around on the ground, like putting down this fake turf stuff that the guy that was running the expo wanted in your booth. And so I have my tape and everything, and I'm down there and I look up and there's, I think it was 5 men standing there in their camo and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, like, are they gonna, you know, yank my chain or whatever, you know, because it already said Bigfoot. And every single one of those men had a story about when they were hunting and they saw something, or when they were fishing and they saw something, and they were really excited to talk about it. And that first weekend, between that first one that I did and another one that I did in Ohio, and that was just 2 shows, my good friend and sometimes research partner Tina Sams came with me to one of them. We got over 87 new reports that people had never, or claimed to never have given to anyone before. And it was funny because sometimes we'd be sitting at the table, and Tina is a hunter and she's a fisherwoman and all this stuff, more outdoors than I am. Like I've learned more things like that as I've become interested in not dying when I'm out in the woods. But she grew up doing all of that. So she would say, like, she'd reel them in over to the table by talking about, you know, hunting deer or whatever, and then hand them over to me and we'd start talking about Bigfoot. But we would just like, there would be sometimes like, say, like, I remember one time there were 3 guys that came to our booth and they're walking past like, Bigfoot, whatever. So they're walking by and they'd go on. And then one of them would, I remember this one guy, he came back by himself. So he left his buddies and came back by himself. And he's like, listen, I didn't want them to hear this, but I saw something, you know, at this time and at this place this year, and a very good description of it. Just didn't want to be made fun of. You know, a lot of people just don't tell their stories because they don't want to be made fun of. And we have tried to give them a place where they can safely do that. You know, I always tell people, if you want to tell me your story, I'm not going to show up in your backyard uninvited. I'm not going to, you know, I'm private about things. I get a little bit of, I don't even know what word I want to use. Sometimes people don't agree with the fact that I keep things to myself, but what they maybe don't understand, and what I try to say, is that if somebody gives me permission to tell their story, then I will tell their story on the rooftop. Mm-hmm. But most people don't. Most people will say, I'll share this with you, but I don't want it to be made public. I don't want publicity from it. And in that case, like, I won't share it. And it's not any other reason than that. I'm happy to share things with people. And I think that that's important. But yeah, I just, if somebody gives and trusts their story to me and they don't want it to go any further, then at least they were able to get it off their chest.
Is there from those early shows or expos that you did, is there a story that sticks out to you that you're allowed to share?
Yes. Oh, I have a couple. one, I don't know if it's going to translate. I will try, like how meaningful it was. It's like almost like you had to be there type of thing, but I'll try. There was a older gentleman who came to our table, and he was kind of looking at things. I have some different like replica footprints that people have given me and different pictures and things. And he went off to the side, and then he came back, and then he went off to the side, and then he came back later. And he was like, listen, ladies, I'm going to tell you a story. And I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but he proceeded to tell Tina and I his story. And it wasn't super dramatic, you know, as far as Bigfoot stories go, because, you know, some people have ones that are a little more exciting, I guess. But if you could have seen this man, he talked about how he had been a lifetime hunter. And ever since he was a little boy, his Christmas was opening day of deer season. You know, it was better than Christmas. That's what he loved to do with his grandpa, with his father, and they would be out in those woods hunting. And he was older when this happened, but he was looking out the window of his home in rural Pennsylvania, and it had woods surrounding it and stuff. And he saw what he claims was a Bigfoot standing there in his yard. And he got a very good look at it, had a very good description of it, saw it for, you know, a reasonable amount of time where like he knew, he's like, I know it wasn't a bear. I know it wasn't a person. That's what it was. He wasn't into Bigfoot, you know, not that people are like, oh, it's more believable if somebody's not into Bigfoot. And I kind of understand what they're saying, but you can be into Bigfoot and still have a good sighting, hopefully someday. But he was telling us his story, and he talked about how he never goes back in the woods anymore, and how he'll go to these hunting shows and he'll buy equipment and he'll take it home and he won't go. And he said this thing wasn't supposed to be real. It wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't supposed to be real. He's telling us a story and he is tearing up. You know, he's shaking a bit and just very unhappy about the whole topic of Bigfoot. Like it really ruined something that was special to him.
And he was in the woods his whole life, and
his whole
it
life
wasn't supposed to be there. Yeah.
Right.
Now there's something there that he never, you know, that like in his mind shouldn't be there.
Right.
I can
And I've
see
heard that phrase
life-changing.
so many times. It wasn't supposed to be there. It's not supposed to be real. From so many people. And he just really left an impression on me. People will ask me, you know, do you believe in Bigfoot? And my standard answer is maybe, you know, sometimes, depends on the day. I really believe that Bigfoot could be real, but I am the type of person where I need, for good or bad, I'm not saying this is a good quality, but I need a better sighting for me to be 100% sure. But I will say, like, depends on the day, because when I speak to somebody like him, I believed him. Like, I 100% believed this man that he was telling me the truth. And when I talk to witnesses, whether at outdoor shows or wherever it is that I find them, or they find me, and they are just oozing, you know, with believability, then I'm like, yeah, I think they're real. Like, I think they're real. It's usually the days where I've been like up all night writing or doing something, and I'm like, I can never find anything, that I'm kind of like, what if they're not real? But he was very, very believable. He really was.
It only takes, you know, one of 1,000 witnesses,
yes,
to be right.
For
You're
this
right.
to exist. Just one to be real. So yes, I do think that they're real. I just have my days, you know, I have my days where I'm like, am I wasting all my time? But I don't think so.
Yeah, and I love the fact that your witnesses are like, you're doing this at like a hunter fisherman expo, because it tends to be these people, even like the bird watchers, who they're not looking for Bigfoot. They're just out in the woods doing their thing, whether it's hunting, fishing, looking for birds, hunting, gathering mushrooms, whatever. Those are the people who are just out in the woods having fun doing other things that seem to be the people who are having the most eyewitness, experiences.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There's another gentleman. You want to hear another story?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
This wasn't from a hunting show, though. This was somebody that I met through different channels. But it's that same type of thing. Like, he was not out there looking for Bigfoot. Basically, and I tell the story a lot, but it was just so like that moment when I'm talking to him, I was like, oh my gosh, they're real. They're real, because he was so sincere. He was is a foreman for a construction crew in Pennsylvania, not too far from Cook Forest, where there's a lot of sightings that even continue to this day. And he was on the night shift, I guess you want to call it. His crew was taking down a water tower, like a very small water tower in the middle of this little clearing in the middle of the forest. And he was the only one there that night. So he was sleeping in his truck, like had a whole bunch of blankets and stuff, because this was in February. And he was sleeping in his truck, watching this generator that was spurting out like flames to melt the water, and the water tower was still on. So that was his job that night. So he had, I can't remember if it was on his phone or his watch, like every half hour or so, the alarm would go off and he'd look and it would still be going and he'd go back to sleep. So he said that there was a point where it was not the alarm that went off that woke him up, but something shoving his truck. So he's telling me this. We went, myself and my friend, who is a bear specialist from Canada. She just happened to be in town when I got this report, and we went to take his report. And I met him, his wife, and their dog, which is kind of important. So he's telling us this story, and he said that he was in the truck. Something shoved it, and like he was so hard that he kind of went like this, and the phone went flying over to the passenger floorboard, and he could hear footsteps. So he's like trying to get out of his blanket stuff, and he's looking, and not far ahead. I am so bad at distances, but I feel like I'm going to say totally something different than what I said before, but I'm just bad at distances and I forget things. I would say maybe like 15 yards in front of him, like not far, was the water tower. And over to the left of the water tower, right under, like right on the tree line, was this Bigfoot, he says. So at first he was like, what am I looking at? Is somebody going to try to steal the generator? Like, what's going on here? He's watching it. And when he moved, like to try to get his phone again, this thing turned. So it was in profile, and then it turned and looked at him. And he said that's when he knew, like, he wasn't looking at a bear. He was looking at a person. He could see it in the light that was being thrown from that generator. And he's telling us this story, and I could tell he was getting kind of nervous. And I said, well, why don't we go have my friend go stand where you said it was? And she's about 6 foot, so tall. And she went and stood in profile where he said it was, and he remembered the branches. Like, he had a lot of really good details. And when she turned to look at us, he started crying. And he's just terribly upset about this, because this is the first time anybody had been standing there, for him to get any kind of a comparison. And he's like, she's so small, it was so big, that kind of thing. And he wasn't weeping, but he was crying and tearing up and more, and just very, very upset. So he's like, trying to, get it together a bit. And I felt bad because I didn't mean, like you want to hear their stories and they want to tell you their stories, but you don't want to upset anybody.
Right. So, right.
Right.
He kind of went over to the side a bit to compose himself, and his wife was there, and I was talking to her. I'm like, did you talk to him that night? And she said, as soon as he got a phone signal, he called. And she's like, she looked me right in the eyes and she's like, Amy, this man has never missed a day of work in his life. And he couldn't go back for a few days. He was so upset. And the thing that, like, see, I just got these chills I usually do when I tell the story, is that the thing that I was paying attention to as he was telling us his story and made such a huge impression on me is that as he's telling it and getting very upset, his dog was jumping up on him, whining and jumping up on him.
So he knew that he was having an emotional,
Yes. I kept thinking, like, why would somebody drag us out here to lie to us about something anyway? I guess people could do that, but like, I'm like, you're not gonna lie to your dog. Your dog's gonna know if you're really upset or not.
That's
and
so true.
It was a very intense moment and a very intense experience, that taking that witness report. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that.
That's wild.
I mean, you can lie, but I think it's like really hard to be that good where you can act that emotionally upset from telling a story to the point even where your dog is convinced.
Yeah.
So
I think your dog
that's pretty crazy.
I agree.
That is wild.
So let's real quick, like talk about Project Zoobook.
Yes.
Yeah. So like, why don't you tell everybody what Project Zoobook is all about?
Project Zoobook is my favorite. I know I say everything's my favorite, but can't help it. Project Zoobook came about in 2018 when I had the great luck, blessing, fortune, whatever you want to call it, of meeting a young lady through a Facebook post just by accident. Like, I just happened to see what she said. I reached out to her through Messenger, and like the rest is kind of history, because this young lady, I had no idea who she was. I just knew that she kind of was into Bigfoot and wanted to maybe go out looking for Bigfoot. She told me through Messenger that she and her coworkers were interested in the topic. I had no clue what she did for a living. And I was like, and she couldn't go wherever we were going to be looking for Bigfoot. She couldn't go. It was like a Bigfoot group. And I said, well, I'll take you sometime. We can go. You don't have to like have an official expedition. You can just go look around in the woods, And so we kind of started chatting a little bit more. And it was about a week or so later, can't exactly remember how long, that she finally laid this big surprise on me, that the coworkers she was talking about, who she said they would read books and they would listen to podcasts about Bigfoot, were the primate department at a zoo. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Why are y'all interested in this?
Like, I just was really shocked, because it seems like people are more open to things now than they used to be even 10 years ago. But I wasn't expecting like actual scientists to take any of this seriously, because I'm just not used to that. So flash forward from that, they were very, very interested. And one of the reasons was because when listening to podcasts or looking up reports and things like that, they would notice a lot of things that were very primate-like, that to the point where they didn't think a lot of lay people would know very specific things. So they're like, what's going on here? And one of them, she had gone with her dad to the big Expedition Bigfoot Museum in Cherry Log, Georgia, and was really impressed with what she saw. So I know, and especially at that time, like, I knew that I had read everything I could read about Bigfoot. I had followed different people. I tried to really educate myself, but I also knew that I was relatively new at this, and that there were people who had been around a lot longer than myself who would be able to teach them or tell them more things. And so we started these every other week. We started these telephone calls that kind of just blew up over the years. And now we do Zoom calls usually every 2 weeks, except for when I have parent teacher conferences. Cancel. And we have, it depends on the night and the topic or who can be there, but we usually have, upwards of 30 to 40 people, several who are scientists who have joined our ranks, and they'll join when they can. We have several who are kind of a core group, but we have primatologists, anthropologists, marine biologists, wildlife biologists, those primate zookeepers from the very beginning who have become very good friends of mine, and all who are very sincerely interested in the topic. Some who have seen Bigfoot, and who are absolute knowers. Others who are hopeful skeptics, like I usually call myself. But all of us just really enjoy talking about things. And what I think the most important thing is, just like I will do for witnesses at those outdoor shows, is I try to give a safe place for people to talk. And a lot of our scientists are not willing quite yet to put themselves out there as far as their careers, and I sure don't blame them for that. It's one thing to be talking in a Zoom call to other interested people about whether or not Sasquatch could be real, and it's a very different thing to be telling, your curator or your boss that this is something you're interested in when they still think it's like chasing leprechauns and, things like that. So we're trying to, I still feel bad when I say that, because who knows, maybe leprechauns are real. I don't know.
Only on St. Patrick's Day.
Do they make footprints? Do they have like castings of their footprints?
I don't know. I don't think so. But I just always I don't want to make fun of anybody.
I hear you, girl. That makes sense.
So, but we call ourselves a think tank first and foremost, but we do have a lot of side projects going on. Sometimes, like myself and a couple of other researchers went out this past summer with some scientists out to the Blackfeet Nation in Montana, and had the best time learning about their traditions of the Inamitapi, or that's what they call Bigfoot out there. We have scientists that hook up with different micro-studies, with different lay people out in their areas. We work very closely with the Olympic Project. Between the two of us, we have a lot of members, and we just are trying, to make what Dr. Bindernagel said he wanted to do, is just to make the topic less taboo among the scientific community and to be able to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So Amy, did some of the scientists from Project Zoobook actually travel out to the Olympic Project and look at the nest site and such?
Yes.
And what were their thoughts?
Those two main primate zoologists came out with me. We flew out one time, and I can't speak for them, but I can tell you that when we were in the area of the nests and they came climbing up the ledge or whatever you want to, out of the valley, up from where they had been looking at those nests, I saw their faces, and I was like, more than ever in my life, I thought that they are real, because they were so impressed by this nest site. And they were going on and on about how, they work with gorillas and they work with chimpanzees, and how the nests were set up very much like primate beds, primate nests that they would make. And they're like, we could see this such and such gorilla doing that, or we could see this such and such gorilla making that kind. And they had sight lines to each other, and just where they were located and the food that could be found there. They were excited, in no way were they saying 100% Bigfoot made those. And the Olympic Project doesn't say that. We say it's these nests are something that should be looked into, but they're not unless you see Bigfoot making one, you know, or you
Right.
get that irrefutable evidence. They're not saying that for sure. But yeah, those people who, you know, one of them that went out with me, he had been out in Africa, you know, looking for gorillas. The curator at his old zoo is one of the people that helped discover and grow the database of information about the Cross River gorillas on the border of Cameroon and Nigeria. So these are people who know what they're talking about. And it was just really exciting.
Yeah, that's like super intriguing to have like professionals, like you were saying, who know what, you know, like a gorilla nest looks like, and looking at something in North America and being like, okay, this is an ape that
Yes.
lives here in North America.
Sure
So,
seems like it.
yeah, I mean, like before we run out of time, Amy.
Bit my tongue.
Yeah. Before we run out of time, I did want to talk about the Wall Street Journal article, because Tim, you were mentioning that.
So yeah,
how did that come about?
Another bit of luck, you know, really. Like I try to make my own luck. I work very, very hard at this. So I try to make connections, and I try to bring as much as myself and the energy that I have to Bigfoot. So I do work very hard, but I'm the first one to admit that sometimes you just get a lucky strike or something. And I had spoken at an event in Marionville, Pennsylvania last year. And there was a gentleman who's a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, whose editor had told him to try to find kind of some fun event in Pennsylvania, because he's a field reporter. He lives in Pittsburgh or in that area, and try to find some kind of a fun festival or something that he could do an article about. So I think he had looked at other things too, but he found this Bigfoot festival, and he's like, Bigfoot festival. And he called the people who had put it on, and they were talking about how many people came to this, because it was huge. It really was. And that gentleman was like, you should talk to our main speaker. And so he contacted me, and he's like, my name is Chris Mayer. I'm from the Wall Street Journal. And I'd like to do a article about you. And I'm like, you know, at first you think it's a joke. You're like, what? So I'm like, well, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. So at first it was supposed to be more of a lighthearted article, you know, just like, oh, you know, it's like they're doing howling contests and, you know, all that kind of thing, which is fun. That would have been fine. But it really turned into something more than that, because as Chris started talking to me, and again, I knew, like, he could talk to me as much as he wants to, but I have other people I wanted him to talk to. So I'm like, okay, well, you would probably be really interested in talking to the Olympic Project. You'd probably be very interested in talking to Dr. Oh my gosh, my brain just went. Dr. Meldrum. Dr. Meldrum, I'm sorry. It just like left the building. You would probably be interested in talking to this person or that person. And he was very interested. So we also had a group of the core members of Project Zoobook. At that night, there were about 20 of us. And this was scary, because some of the scientists that came on that call could have been in some trouble. I don't know how else to say it, with their places of work if we couldn't trust this reporter. And he was telling us, you know, we won't use your names if you don't want us to, you know, we'll keep things confidential, but you're never really sure if that's going to be true.
Well, I mean, journalists have like a code of ethics, kind of like a lawyer or a doctor, or
they do,
you know, and they pretty much stand by them. So
they do, but yeah. I've been around those who haven't, I guess I should say, like that, or gotten things wrong, you know. So he was wonderful, and so you're absolutely right. Like he stuck to everything that he said.
So he sat in on one of the Project Zoobook calls.
He did, and he was like, I think that was like a 3-hour call. Whoa. And he's taking notes and everything. And he was just, I don't want to speak for him, but just what he has told me, he was very fascinated by it. And he went back to his editor and was like, this is like real. We have scientists who aren't able to talk about something they're studying for fear of ridicule. And that's what he was really interested in. So we spent weeks talking between myself and him and other people. And then he ended up going camping with some of us, like a group of local researchers. The photographer flew in from Alaska, and she was great. She said, I picked this job on purpose because I want to go look for Bigfoot. And here I am, like all the whole time I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, like he's going to be so disappointed because we're probably not going to find Bigfoot, which we didn't.
Right.
But I told him that I'm like, no, I'm like, usually nothing happens too much here, Chris. But no, he's like, it's okay. I just want to see what you do. And I was laughing because I think like the opening part of the article that they were talking about, like making the whooping sounds and all of that, which I normally don't do, but we were trying to give him the whole experience. But it was great. It was great. And we got so much positive feedback. The reason that I do podcasts like this or articles or I speak places, besides that it's just fun to talk to you, is that my hope is that I can get more scientists interested. So that has happened since that article, and we have some other opportunities that are going to be coming up. But it's just super exciting. He did a great job on the article. We didn't know if he was going to make fun of us. He didn't. It was just a phenomenal opportunity. And he was a beast in those woods, even though that wasn't where he normally spends his time.
Well, tell him he needs to do a series on it so he can.
I know. Well, we told him he can come out with us anytime he wants. So yeah, for sure.
So that's so exciting. And so for the audience, make sure you check out, just type in Wall Street Journal Bigfoot. I'll share briefly. Here's for our viewing audience. Here's the Wall Street Journal, the clip from it, and so this is September 21st. If anyone wants to look back on that. So Amy, crazy. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was so crazy. Chris had texted me that the article was out. We didn't know when it was coming. So I was in my home room, like the kids had study hall, and I was typing it in to look, and there's like, bam, and there's my picture. I'm like, ah! And all the kids are like, it was just fun. It was fun. We were very
honest. So super cool.
So last question, Amy, what advice do you have for new researchers who want to get involved in the subject?
Oh, that is a good question. I've had that question before, and I think my answer has changed a little bit.
Let me check your book, because you answered in the book too. Hold on.
Oh, okay. I can't remember what I said. I can't remember what I said, but what I'm going to say is this. Like I used to say, do your own thing, don't get caught up in a group, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of that came just from the drama that has come along with trying to, like I said, like I don't care if anybody knows my name. Like they don't have to know who Amy Bue is. I put myself out there kind of as the face of Project Zoobook because somebody has to do it. And I volunteered as tribute, I guess. And I'm proud of it. So don't get me wrong. But my hope is always to get more people, more scientists interested. So along with that, though, has come a bit of drama. And that, it's nothing against the Bigfoot community. You could be a knitting circle. Mm-hmm.
There's drama everywhere, girl.
Everywhere. So that, like, I love people in the Bigfoot community. So it's not that. But for a while there, I was kind of just tired of that type of a thing. Mm-hmm. So I would say often, like, just do your own thing. And I still think that that's true. Like, you don't have to be involved in a group. You don't have to go out on official expeditions or anything like that. You can just get out in the woods and be looking around and taking notes and drawing pictures and taking pictures and whatever and looking for evidence. But I've kind of changed my mind a little bit of that because I think it's fun, to go out with other people, and it's a good thing to learn from people who know more than you do about, even if it's just the history of Bigfooting. I don't think there are any experts in Bigfoot circles, but I think there are experts in different parts of it, like audio or the history, or, I'd say Todd Prescott is a pretty good expert in the history of Bigfoot. He might not say that, but I would say that, that kind of thing. So I think I would tell somebody who's new to read as much as you can, which is what I did, to if you're going to get out in the woods, and this is something that took me a few years to do, I started out not knowing even how to put my own tent up, or make a fire or anything like that. And because of Bigfoot, I started taking different survival classes and started learning. And that's when I went through the training to become a Ohio certified volunteer naturalist and all of that kind of thing, learning about wild edible and medicinal plants, learning how to make a fire from nothing. So if you're out there, that you're going to protect yourself a bit. So I would say just to enjoy the experience. And if that means that you want to sign up for an expedition or something, do it. I'm not as jaded as I used to be, I think. There's a lot of fun people out there. So why not? But also, and I don't know if I said this in the book or not, don't sell yourself short. Even as somebody who's a newcomer, you can have as much to contribute as somebody who's been doing this for 20 years, and so don't let anybody tell you, oh, you don't know anything. Oh, you shouldn't be doing this. Do it. Just ignore all of that and do it.
That's good advice.
That is good advice.
Yeah, because fresh eyes sometimes are good.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely.
And it's just like playing the lottery. You never know what's going to happen.
Somebody's going to find something. I hope, like, it is my dearest hope that it is like a newbie that finds the best evidence.
I mean, it's usually the people who are not even looking for him that actually see a Sasquatch.
I really hope that happens.
That's
It'll
probably
make a lot of people mad.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Amy, can't thank you enough for everything.
You're so awesome. Yeah. It was so great to talk to you.
This was awesome. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you really soon.
We really appreciate it, Amy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to meeting you in person someday.
Yes,
that would be super cool.
Yes. Now I really want to go to CryptoCon.
Yeah, come on down.
Come on, girl.
Yeah, I will.
I'll put you to work in a booth.
Well, that'd be fun.
All right, Amy. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Bye.
Have a great night, honey. Thank you. Thank you. Amy's super cool.
It was fun.
It was really cool.
Interview. She's so informative, and she's humble. She doesn't take enough credit for what she does, but she's puts it all together. And
I think her teaching, her abilities as a teacher helps to connect to people and to get the information out there and organize her Zoobook, her project Zoobook so well.
Well, if you can corral a bunch of kids together, you can pretty much do anything. So.
Yeah, especially all the drama people in the Bigfoot world, like she was saying.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks again, Amy, for joining us. Thank you, everyone who's, whether you're listening or watching. We appreciate every single one of you.
Yeah.
We look forward to seeing whoever's going to show up at CryptoCon. Say hello. Make sure you say hello.
Hello.
Send go onto the website, the Bigfoot influencers, and
and you can follow us on Facebook.
Yeah, you can follow us anywhere you want.
Instagram, Twitter.
The book's available everywhere.
Just
so
Bigfoot influencers, boom. We're there.
Yep.
We're easy to find.
If you want signed copies of the book, you can go to, I've mentioned this a bunch of times, but you can go to Cliff Barrickman's North American Bigfoot Center, Lauren Coleman's International Cryptozoology Museum, Ken Hamilton's SasquatchTheLegend.com, and you can go to Hanger On Publishing.
But I think you're on like Amazon.
Oh
now.
Yeah, so it's available everywhere. Yeah. But if you go to the first three places, if you want an autographed copy,
and also if you want to support a small business,
support a small business. And I think Lauren and Cliff are signing their chapters. So if you order the book from Lauren and Cliff, you'll get their autograph as well. Theirs is worth a lot more than mine anyway. So, but anyway, thank you all for joining, and
thanks, guys.
We'll see you guys next episode.
We look forward to the next episode.